daycare of horror. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just Bengaluru's nightmare. This may well be the reality check that should change the course of this country, of how this country looks at daycare. Even as the country is pushing for more and more women, most of them mothers, to return to workforce. A shocking case of child abuse has emerged from Bengaluru, raising serious questions about the safety of daycare centers operating inside corporate campuses. The incident involves a daycare facility at Capgemini's HAL campus, run by a third-party service provider, where toddlers as young as 2 and 3 years old were allegedly subjected to horrifying abuse. According to the FIR and videos that have surfaced, caregivers locked children inside dark bathrooms, sprayed water into their mouths using a toilet jet, forced them to sit onto toilet seats, physically assaulted them, and most disturbingly, allegedly placed crying toddlers inside washing machine to frighten them. The videos came to light after being shared by a whistleblower, triggering a complaint with the child helpline. Bengaluru's HAL police have registered an FIR against 5 caregivers under provisions of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and the Juvenile Justice Act, which deals with cruelty to children. The daycare has been temporarily shut while police have seized CCTV footage and launched a detailed investigation. In a statement, Capgemini has said the safety and well-being of employees and their families remains its top priority, adding that it is fully cooperating with investigators and has closed the facility as a precaution. Sadly, this is not an isolated incident. In recent years, daycare abuse cases have surfaced in Noida, Maharashtra, Bengaluru, exposing serious lapses in child safety, supervision, and accountability. The timing is significant. India's preschool and childcare sector is expanding rapidly as more parents in urban India rely on daycare facilities. But as demand grows, experts say regulation, staff verification, CCTV monitoring, and strict accountability must keep pace. The bigger question is, what is India's daycare policy? Can there be a unified daycare policy? If India is one nation and one poll, can India have one nation and one daycare policy just to ensure that their children are safe? I'm being joined at this point by Dr. Kapil Kakkar, a psychologist, Sanjay Sahai, who's a former ADGP Karnataka, Advocate Manoj Sharma, Vice President, Delhi Parents Association. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining me. At the outset, let me just say, it's good to have 3 men in the panel for a topic like that. I would have liked another panelist as well, who was a woman as well. Maybe I can do for that. I'm a mother, you all are fathers. It's great to have you all on the show. What a horrifying video before us. Advocate Manoj Sharma, you are an advocate, you're also a parent. How can this be allowed in 2026 India?
It is really very shocking, very shocking. I cannot have words. You cannot imagine how can any adult who is kept for, to look after and take care of very small kids, rather just a kid which is, or rather entity which is just out of very infant age, just from the lap of the mother, or you can say nearly in the lap of the mother, and that human being is, put for the job of to take care, and that doing such a horrifying act. It is inhuman, whatever I can't get the word to just, say what they are doing and how, a female or a woman or a man can do with such a small kid. It is beyond imagination. And forget about what are the rules, regulation, code, act, ethics say. It is totally inhuman.
I mean,
Sometimes I feel
inhuman
that
being one part of it, there are so many other aspects of it. One, that this is happening on an on campus daycare, which is working for a corporate. So you essentially have mothers who are working there, fathers who are working there. I would like to believe that fathers who are working there would also have brought their toddlers there. Because, in today's world, it's nuclear families. You don't have grandparents always. You may not have a facility of a nanny, dependable nanny. And often, you would choose between, say, a nanny who would be far away living at someone's home to a daycare facility that's right on campus where you're working. That's such an assurance for a parent who would be on campus. It's what it, it's a breach of trust, to say the least, that a corporate giant would allow something like this to happen on campus. One is this happening in a daycare, and one, this is happening in a daycare that's for a corporate giant.
yes,
Let me
correct,
just take
correct.
this question straight to Sanjay Sahai at this point.
Yeah, please.
One thing I can tell you that this was not a nanny's crash. This is primarily run by Capgemini. So the kids were being left behind there in the trust that Capgemini has created a facility for its employees, which is of considerable value and primarily a welfare sort of an activity. What was happening there was that it was a just outsourced sort of a service where nobody was supervising. Now, above these 5 nannies, I would like to know as to who was the supervisor. Then you have a CCTV setup out there. Who was seeing the CCTV video footage?
Very
It did
important
not
point.
happen. It did not happen in one single day. It would have been continuing for a long time.
It did.
And let me tell you,
At least the reports that
and
are
it,
emerging, this is not one case. This has happened multiple times. It is not verified at my end. There was a complaint that was filed about this earlier, and the person was sacked. Is what we have picked up
See,
from agency reports, but I don't have this independently confirmed.
See, there are two things. In India, first thing is you outsource and forget. It is not like most of the US companies and the government, where you outsource and you supervise. Here it is outsource and you forget. The second, you put in technology and forget about the technology, as if it does not need any supervision and monitoring. Third is, in case there is a whistleblower, which is extremely difficult, in case you have a whistleblower, you start challenging the whistleblower himself or herself. So that is the third issue. What is being made out here, that it is basically is nanny's inhuman, subhuman act, which led to the whole thing. Nobody
Right.
is denying that. Nobody is denying that. But what was the oversight? What was the regulation? And in another panel discussion, we were talking about lots of regulations which are in place. The only thing missing they talked about is compliance. If compliance itself is missing, enforcement itself is missing, there is nobody ready to get into the oversight mechanism. Then what is existing? Nothing is existing. We have got a case of the same nature in Noida a couple of months back. I think
Right.
it was in August where the toddler was being put against the wall and variety of other things were happening. So, and then you have a protection unit, child care, juvenile protection units. What is their oversight? So primarily what you are seeing is that, and MNC is just putting in a lip service that their first concern is the health of, it is a criminal breach of trust. And we
Absolutely.
should get over this habit of covering apathy as something which is we have been ignorant about or we have not made effort. Apathy, see, commission and omission are part of the same offense. This offense would not have happened had Capgemini had a reasonable oversight mechanism. Very simple. The courts have been telling over and over again in large number of police cases that the video footage has to be audited every day. And a 24-hour video footage can be audited in couple of minutes. Why that is not happening? I would like to know who is the supervisory officer who takes care of the Capgemini crash. The MNCs, the corporates are not ready to take responsibility. Outsourcing broadly it has failed. The companies are not ready to take that level of cost which comes out of this, plus enjoy that they have provided the facility. These 5 people have to be arrested straight away. Then all the people who have not taken cognizance since the time whistleblower has started this. Third is before that Dombivli case and the Noida case, what changes have taken place? One is what the government has done. Second is, I come to know that there is a very visible vulnerability and scare and there are issues. I, as a person who is organizing that facility, should I not take precautions? All these service agencies, supposedly specialized, have absolutely no expertise. Where
Right.
were these ladies trained? Where do they have any capability and understanding either of caregiving or the law? Was there any police verification? Do we have any list of the inspections which have happened? So this is where we
And I think
stand.
at
We are in
this
a
point, it's very important that Capgemini comes out with that.
correct.
Capgemini comes out with that. If there was any independent audit party that was involved in it, a third party audit that was being done, it is important to be brought it out on record because this has to be learnings that India cannot ignore. We have ignored enough, and the truth is that we've had Noida CCTV captured assault of a 15-month-old child, Maharashtra toddler bitten after children left unsupervised. Now you have this particular case in Bengaluru. There was another case in Bengaluru where there was sexual assault of children as well. Now, these are repeated cases, and we seem to get angry, upset, horrified about these facts, about these realities. But as a country, do you think we have done enough? I don't think we have done enough. As a working mother, I don't think we have done enough. I know of many of my colleagues who would have to leave their kids at daycares, and it comes with so much of pressure. And there are daycares that do a great job. There's CCTV surveillance, there's real-time monitoring of what's happening with the child at the daycare facility. Parents can monitor it. But that's not the case with everybody. Dr. Kapil Kakkar, tell us psychologically what's going on here. There's threefold. One, there's a 2-year-old, 3-year-old child that's being put to this. I can't fathom this. One thing about kids is they are great at forgiving and moving on. They are great at moving on to the next. That's their coping mechanism. That's how they function. But you're stealing that opportunity from children by doing something like this, sir.
Okay, so at the outset, we need to understand the onus is definitely on Capgemini. What was the qualification of the caregivers? How much were they trained? How much experience they had? All these things, to my mind, are missing. And that is why perhaps it had converted or manifested in sort of a culture at that particular caregiver. Normally what happens is there are 4 aspects where in caregivers places things are abused. One is when a caregiver, there is a high burnout. They are paid less and they are expected to work for a very long time. That is when the frustration starts setting in. That is one of the triggers which over a period of time, when it is not audited, when it is not monitored, it gets converted into
I agree
a
with you
mini culture.
completely, Dr. Kapil.
Secondly, there is also caregivers who are indulging in substance abuse, which many people may not know or understand. For a parent, when they put a child in in a caregiver house, for a parent, it is something that's the best thing they have done, and the things have been delegated. However, we don't know what was the substance abuse. Was there any substance abuse or not? Third is the cognitive distortion. Now, cognitive distortion is part of the trainings given to the caregiver, that the unrealistic expectation from a child cannot be expected. Here, I feel that they are venting out their expectations through this cognitive distortion. Like I earlier said, either they are not trained enough, they do not have that patience, they do not have that empathy, or moreover, they are coming from a culture, from their own hometowns or family or places where this might be a norm in those particular areas, and they are totally insensitive. Fourth is the attribution bias. Now, what is attribution bias? It is that child is doing something intentionally. So instead of creating a stimulus, a child becomes a response to the entire thing which is given or stimulated by the caregiver. And that is when the child becomes, they believe that child is doing intentionally. You would see, if you would probe more into this, they would be doing this more to certain age group or certain group of children who they would have prejudiced over a period of time. I have had a lot of cases. In fact, you're talking about caregivers here. In schools also, I have had parents where the children would be reluctant to go to school. And this I'm primarily talking about toddlers, because toddlers, they feel they cannot communicate.
That's true.
And the toddlers, when they would be reluctant going to school, what happens is, when the parents say, come to me, I only tell them one thing, that please change their school, because they have a problem with the class teacher. No matter how good or how big school is, if you feel that your child is not being given or is not very happy there, that is why the child is reluctant. And 99%, in 99% cases, after the school was changed, the child behavior became normal, because children, they need emotional countenance, and that is what parents. So I'm quite a little disturbed. I'm sorry, I'm going on.
No, please.
But I'm a little disturbed that why the parents, because behavioral changes in toddlers also would happen.
Oh, absolutely, Dr. Kapil. In fact, let me
are-
just break down what you're saying, to our viewers who may not know. If you're talking about a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, you're training them, you're potty training them, you're teaching them how to wear your undergarments, how to wear your t-shirt, how to wear your pants. They cannot be doing it by themselves, how to tie your bow, how to tie a shoe, how to wear a shoe, how to use a spoon. Many times they have to be fed. Food is dropping, and all of this can be extremely tiring task. It can be an extremely tiring, daunting task, especially when you have to do it day in, day out, under pressure, without no support system.
So you're right. So that's where the burnout comes in.
Absolutely.
Either the place was understaffed, or there were long working hours. Moreover, the caregivers were not given enough attention.
Right.
There wasn't
Right.
adequate training.
Right.
And monitoring and auditing, we have already discussed. Yes.
Right. Sanjay Saha, if I can very quickly come to you at this point, just very quickly tell me, is there a national policy for daycare safety? Is that something that India has? Is that something India needs to look at? And why I ask you this question is, because time and again, every few months, we talk about how women's participation in workforce is increasing, about how the government is doing so much to increase the workforce. Unfortunately, I'm harping on women's participation in the workforce, but however traditional or patriarchal or whatever word you want to use, largely when it comes to a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, you do have cases where the father takes the primary responsibility, stays back, and the mother goes to work. But that's still by far and few. It's largely still the women who would be doing it across the country mostly. It's changing, but it's still mostly like that. My question, Sanjay Saha, is there a uniform policy? Can India have a uniform policy?
There is no uniform policy. It might be in bits and pieces, and that is also not being enforced. The reality of the matter is, and primarily it is very directly linked with women in workforce. It is directly proportional. This whole activity is directly proportional to women entering the workforce and sustaining in the workforce, and or being of great utility in the workforce, because if the woman is under stress from morning till evening, by the knowledge of such daycare centers, I don't think she can be very, very productive and efficient. Now, when we come back to the requirement of a policy, there is absolutely no way that anybody can say there is no requirement of a policy. Now, the requirement of the policy in a very cooperative federal structure as the one we have is a national integrated policy on daycare systems, creche, and these sorts of institutions, might be even preschools and other lower level institutions. But the problem is the enforceability part of it. And today, where we are lacking, you can pick up also good practices from variety of other places, but that is actually not happening. So we need an integrated daycare or creche system policy, and also the teeth to enforce this policy.
Absolutely.
Today we have
The teeth
protection
to
officers.
enforce it and the necessity to ensure responsibility of owning it.
Correct. Now, Cape Gemini is not owning.
Right. Very quickly, I'm short of time. Advocate Manoj Sharma,
Yeah, please.
as a parent, as an important member of umbrella body, what would your appeal be at this time? What would you want to say?
I think the other two panelists have discussed all the things in very detail. The only issue is where is the checks and balances, whether it is a corporate providing the facility of a crèche or whether a third party outsource providing the nannies and the staff to take care of the children. Where is the checks and balances? Where is the training? Where is their police verification? Where the Kakkar sir was talking about various aspects of cognitive and mental issues. So why not there is some kind of a preliminary screening or test of such people who are handling with the kids and toddlers, or teachers or drivers who are handling school buses, or all these things. So there is a totally vacuum between the employers and the services provided by them. This is
Absolutely.
the
Dr.
only issue.
Kapil
There is
Kakkar, you
no
had
check
your
and
hands up.
balances.
You had your hands up, maybe a minute to you. Please go ahead.
So I wanted to suggest or say, when we're talking about policy, now many organizations, now Capgemini is not a small organization, many organizations who are running the school in their own vicinity, you would see that the employees' spouses are teachers there. So one of the method of being sensitive is, rather than giving it to a third party, the organization itself engages its own employees' spouses, where the sensitivity or their relatives, where the sensitivity and empathy comes in. So that is one of the very key thing which I've seen in many organizations, especially in schools. Secondly, when we talk about individuals who are not a part of big organization, for them it becomes a troublesome case, because
Right.
there are no checks and balances
Right.
in place.
Right.
And that is where the challenge is even bigger.
Right, and I think I would just like to end with just one statement. The buck cannot stop with just 5 nannies. They are just part of a larger crime that has been committed. If a messaging has to go out, if the country has to wake up, it cannot stop at just 5 nannies. Dr. Kapil Kakkar, Sanjay Sahai, and Advocate Manoj Sharma, thank you very much for your time.